Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm Anna. I'm a product marketing manager here in CloudTalk. You may have seen me on the webinars before, and I'll be your main host today. But because you guys are asking many great questions, I need a bit of a backup here. And that's why I have Diego here with me, who is our senior customer success manager, and he's helping clients to implement AI voice agents. Do you want to just say hi?
Yep. Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you. I'll get a little bit more of a chance to speak later on, but yeah, super excited to be here and to see what kind of questions you guys have.
Exactly. And then we will also have Sunil joining. You may have seen him also before, and he's here, or he will be here mostly to cover the Q&A. And by saying that, let's start with the agenda. We'll cover the intro and actually the problems. So why we are here today, where we are taking a look at the seasonality in education. Second of all, we take a look at specific use cases and also do a live demo. Then we'll summarize everything at the end. And of course, we will take your questions in the end. Now let's jump into the actual content. First of all, I want to acknowledge that, of course, today we have different ways and different education providers, right? But what we're going to focus on today here is the traditional education, which when I say that, I want to say like universities, colleges, or any in-person institutions. And second of all, we will focus on any online education. So whether you are running digital universities, boot camps, or maybe you have some online course platform, we will also cover how AI voice agents can help you in this area. And only because it's easier to demonstrate the issues that the students may have when they are applying for certain programs. And it's easier to demonstrate on the traditional education because the system can be quite complex and overwhelming. We will start by that, and I will now start talking about the part of application and enrollment, and only then we will switch to online education. So now let's get started with some facts. First one is that actually 1 in 4 students just never finish their application. And I actually studied biochemistry, so whenever I see a real research paper on something, I get back into my field. And I was surprised to see that this topic even has like real research and serious science behind it. And it only points to the reality that the application process can be quite lengthy, complex, and overwhelming for the students. Even if I just took a look around on the internet, there are many Reddit forums that are huge. So this one specifically has more than 1 million followers, where people are either asking how to actually submit their application, they are asking about advice on to how get into like here, for example, into graduate schools. And I don't want to cover like all of the variety of the questions, but people are getting stuck at different points in the application or admission process, whether that's like class selection, whether that's how to actually send over the official transcripts to the university. And there are also many questions regarding the financial aid or tuition. Also, apart from online forums, any content that I was able to find that was actually very helpful is getting thousands, hundreds of thousands views. So this is really a topic where over and over, period after period, people are running into similar issues and they are actually struggling with similar things or similar questions. So here I try to group the 3 milestones that the students, or in the student journey, let's call it like that, when you're trying to apply for either university, college, or any in-person education. That's the pre-application stage, application, and then enrollment and onboarding. Again, I will not go through all of these bullet points, but in each of these stages, there's a lot of information that you need to take and understand. There are deadlines to meet, and you need to navigate a whole new system actually in each of these stages. And I was really trying to understand what are the biggest drop-off points or biggest drop-off causes, because we see them throughout this journey. So when we take a look at the pre-application process, usually students struggle to get like timely and clear answers, because this is the stage where there is a huge volume of new information that they need to take in. When we come to application, the students already have some information, but now they need to really navigate the application process, make sure that they meet the deadlines, and they struggle with like uncertainty, what are the next steps, and sometimes they're lacking like guidance, how to really finish the application on time and correctly. And then even when they get enrolled and we come to enrollment and onboarding, there are still students that are dropping off because there can sometimes be friction with administration. And again, they're lacking the support maybe to even come to the first day to understand how to choose and apply for the right classes. Again, the variety of the questions is quite wide. But we are not here to only talk about the students. We are right now here to talk about 2 points of view. Students have the first one. But now let's take a look at what you struggle with, or what are the problems actually for the education providers. And again, it's a big bucket of things, but I really needed to group them. And when I took a look at it from a very high point of view, we have 2 things, right? So every enrollment period, it's the high volume of queries, whether that's emails, phone calls, chats, any communication channel that you are providing for your students. So high volume, and the lack of flexibility to scale your stuff, because you cannot just like triple your stuff overnight, right? To handle the seasonal spike. And second thing is repetitiveness, because majority of these questions are the same, and they are the same every enrollment period. Just to summarize, so what usually the students expect is a 24/7 support, which is not really possible to give by human teams. They really expect like clear guidance throughout all the process, like step-by-step guidance, and then also personalized and some proactive help during the admissions. But the reality, because again of this volume and of repetitiveness of the queries, is that they are not really getting like instant answers, and they are waiting maybe for a few days to get the information that they need. Again, they are getting overloaded and confused in the sea of information. And also, usually if they need any personalized information, they are not able to get that, because what we're usually able to provide are some general brochures or general guidance that can cover this whole mass of students that we need to help. But we are here today because we would like to show you how AI voice agents are able to help your teams, and how they are able to change the experience for both the students and for both the institutions. Because once implemented, or what we see is happening when AI voice agents get implemented, first of all, they are not human. So they can work 24/7 and round the clock. So if you have students that call you at midnight, the AI voice agents can pick up the call and answer the same repetitive questions for 300 times in a row. Second of all, of course, this is based on the knowledge base and what is the specific setup for your voice agents, but they can help and walk the students step by step and guide them throughout the process. And third of all, because the AI voice agents are, of course, connected to your systems, they're able to give like personalized answers based on that student's profile or background. And I feel it's very important to bring back this slide, because on this slide, I would like to highlight that not every job is an AI voice agent's job. But why it's important here is that because it's going to highlight why AI voice agents are highly suitable for exactly helping you to cover the volume and repetitiveness. Because AI voice agents are doing a really great job. First of all, if the task is repetitive and there are clear rules. Second of all, they are great if you need speed and instant responses. Third of all, if you need to cover sudden spikes in volumes. Fourth of all, if you can predict how the user, which in this case is the student, what's their intent and like what outcomes do they actually need. Then we have outcome clarity, so there is a clear goal. And the last step is if a human is only needed for some exception cases, which again fits this use case perfectly, because once the AI voice agents are covering the majority of the repetitive queries from your students, your human team is actually free to handle those exceptions or to handle those edge cases. All right, I am talking now for 4 more minutes, and we will now jump into a demo. And I would like to start the demo with showing you how an example of a 24/7 admission assistant can look like. So imagine that there is a student who is calling your institution after hours, and they just have some repetitive question, or they want to check the status of their application. I will now stop sharing my screen because I need to trigger the call, and I'll put my phone on a speaker so that you can hear the conversation. Hi there.
Hello, this is Siti, the AI voice admission assistant for CloudTalks University. Our offices are currently closed, but I can help with your application questions instead of our human team. How can I help today?
Hi there. I would just like to check the status of my application because I'm not really sure if I submitted everything that I need to.
Sure, let me check that for you. Can I get your application ID and the email you used to apply?
Of course. So my application ID is 654002 and my email is anna.alexinova@gmail.com.
Thanks. I've found your application. You submitted most of your materials, but it looks like we're still waiting on your English proficiency TOEFL test results. You can upload that in the admissions portal under the documents section. Do you know where to find it, or do you want me to guide you there?
Thank you. I think I know where to find it, so that's fine. Is there any deadline?
Yes, there is. Just make sure to submit the TOEFL results before January 5th. That's the deadline. Do you have any other questions about your application or anything else I can help with?
Thank you. I think right now that's it.
Thank you for calling today. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out. I'm here 24/7. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna, for showing us how the inbound demo would work. So if you guys didn't hear about me earlier in the webinar, I'm actually one of the CSMs here. But aside from that, I'm also really involved in all the processes related to the AI team as well. So one of the things that I have always been really passionate about is helping businesses, institutions leverage AI as a resource within their current operations. So when we look within the lens of education and when we look in the lens of what the experience for students is, we can see something like a 24/7 admission assistant be super valuable. But then peeling back the layer additionally, what goes behind that? Right? So we have to take into account that for us to even get the experience that we just saw here, we need to be able to develop the right knowledge base, be able to develop a clear prompt and logic rules. You also need to be able to integrate it with some sort of third-party system. And once we're able to accommodate all of those needs from the voice agent side of things, then we can actually accomplish everything that's written out on the left-hand side, right? So it can give the status updates, it can give everything like that as well. Now, once those things are properly implemented, you'll be able to notice that there are tangible results. So one of the most common things that we've noticed that arises and causes the need of, let's say, an additional resource for students is some of these things. We noticed that 70% of common admissions inquiries are without human help, for example. And the one that really stood out to us is once it was successfully implemented, it was that the average response time went from 2 days to under 15 minutes. And that's because of the nature of the questions, the types of things that are being asked are typically things that a human person would just be able to review quite quickly. But in this sense, it makes more sense for an AI agent to handle it. One of the last things that you can see here as a point is that by proactively also calling students, we're able to remind them for any upcoming missing steps. Obviously, in the inbound case, Anna asked, hey, is there anything that's missing? But that's really helpful because somebody might notice at any point during the day. And if you're servicing multiple different time zones, it also helps to have that availability at an instant. So we can move on to the next slide here. Now, on the traditional education side, what we've done here that I think is really helpful is if we break out the student journey, we can actually fit in a specific type of voice agent use case at every single step in that student's journey. So obviously, we just like an application assistant. But before that, we could have somebody who's a virtual receptionist. Somebody would be answering very standard questions that a student might have about whether it's course requirements, the type of classes that they're having, and things like that. And even post-application, we can have a notifier. Now, one thing that we've also noted is under each of all these cases, we've added the directionality of the call. So on the one hand, we've been able to do inbound use cases as well as outbound use cases on the back end as well. So what's helpful is once we have like an understanding of what's the data that we need to provide, how do we set up the prompt? And also, what's the direction? Is this a proactive voice agent or a reactive voice agent? We can really hone in into where we're able to provide value really seamlessly. So if you go on to the next slide here. Again, adding more additional use cases so you can expand your view of just, oh, it isn't just a receptionist. It can actually be campus support. It can be course support. It depends on the specific types of documentation that we would need for every single sort of segment, right, that you can expect. But it really becomes a bit of a, let's say, a thought experiment of like, how would we improve this process if we could take it away from somebody who could be doing more meaningful, more complex tasks as well. So I think once we start thinking of AI as a resource that can be fit into all these different use cases that Anna has up here on the screen, I think we can really start to improve the efficiencies of teams across different departments, across different levels of support that might be needed, right? The things that get scaled. One key thing to note as well is that This is all about AI working with our human agents as well, right? An AI can still transfer the call. It can, whether it's an outbound or an inbound sort of use case, can still pass over the call to the necessary individual if it notifies the agent or the team that the case is a bit more complex. So we're never like fully separating them. We're just helping let's say the easier questions get out of the way so the more complex tasks are handled more thoughtfully.
I'm going to take the word again here just to give you an example of a outbound voice agent that can be applied in education. Imagine you are an online course provider, and whenever someone comes to your website and is interested in a course, they fill in a form, right? After that, you have a voice agent set up to call these prospective students and to actually get them booked on a one-on-one call with a human.
Am I speaking with Anna?
Yes, you are.
I saw you just filled in our form to know more about our MBA program, so I thought I'd give you a call directly. Do you have a minute to talk right now?
Of course. And who is this again?
Great, thanks. I'm Sita from CloudTalk Business School. You showed interest in our MBA program. Are you still interested in learning more information?
Yes, I am, for sure.
Perfect. Normally, we schedule a quick call with one of our admissions advisors so they can walk you through the program step by step and answer any questions you may have to see if it's a good fit for you. Would tomorrow work for a quick call?
Tomorrow, I think yes. Would it be possible at 3 p.m.?
Great. Just to confirm, when you say tomorrow, do you mean 26th of November?
Yes, 26th of November at 15:00.
I've got you down for 1500 on 26th of November. I've scheduled your call for tomorrow and you'll receive an email confirmation shortly. Do you have any other questions right now?
Yeah, do you think an MBA is still really worth it these days? Is it worth the money?
That's a great question. I can't give personal advice, but our admissions advisors would be happy to discuss if it's the right fit for you based on your goals. If I were you, this is exactly the type of question to discuss during your call tomorrow. Do you want me to also send a brief overview to your email?
Yes, that would be nice. Okay, thank you for the advice.
Great. I'll send a brief overview to your email right after this. Anything else you'd like to ask before we wrap up?
No, that's it. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. So I think picking up where we left off in the previous use case, we can now see how we can even contact and be a little bit more proactive, even for non-current students or prospective students. Obviously, when we look at a pre-qualification agent, the goal is to essentially be triggered when a form is submitted, and then we can actually be able to make that outbound call. So if you go over to the next slide, you can see here that now it requires a little bit more on the technical side, right? So whereas the first one, we can keep everything pretty within the same platform, right? We can add the knowledge base, we can give it all the specific answers, all the specific ways in which it can interpret the question. Now we actually can work with sales teams or advisor teams, right? Where we can pre-book qualified leads into certain schedules. And we can also provide the notes from those calls as they arise. So maybe from Anna's call, the voice agent might make a note that Anna was unsure if it was worth the money. Right? Something as simple as that could actually be input as a data point to be collected by the voice agent that then gets shared to your CRM's opportunity in order to make it more of to ensure continuity between what the voice agent was able to confirm on the call and the human agent as we're defining them now, right? As long as we understand the process, we understand the requirements of what we need for the specific, let's say, transaction to occur, the sign up, the enrollment, we can break it up and see what can be automated. Typically, warmer leads work better for this. And what we can notice is you can go on to the next page. And with warmer leads as well, we're able to reach out to way more prospective students. So I actually work with a number of different education institutions that have explored or are implementing this type of automated outreach. And we've noticed that for warm leads, so somebody that submitted a form, somebody that maybe tried to sign up, left beforehand, we are noticing better pickup rates. We are noticing a higher engagement, but we're also just increasing the total volume of engaged students in this way. And this not only frees up additional staff hours for the rest of the team to maybe focus on more complex cases, like I mentioned before, or more complex sales or other tasks that could potentially be beneficial for the team, but it just allows it to grow, right? Allows us to grow and reach more students. So if you go on to the next page. On the online education side, we see, again, similar sort of process here. Every single step of the student's journey can now be almost itemized in a way. And you can think of a very specific sort of like narrow use case for the AI voice agent. I typically do recommend for my clients in particular to always look at a process in different parts and then focus on creating individual agents for each of those. This ensures that there's more consistency and it's more of a straightforward like cause and effect of what happens on a call, as opposed to trying to put all of these into one sort of voice agent that handles all these different types of requests, right? if we're able to streamline what the CRM is, what the data is, and everything like that, we're able to ensure more effectiveness as well. So you can see other options here. If she goes to the next page, this is more so at the beginning and even towards the end. So things like student success and student support, a ton of different types of engagement tools are at your disposal if we're able to include the relevant bits of information for every single one of these use cases. So with that being said, you can see how whether it's online, whether it's traditional, it's not really too difficult. We just have to understand the processes.
Perfect. And I think that's a great segue to actually summarize. Also, I see that we are exactly on time. The point to take away from this webinar. In cases where we can't really change the system, and this again applies more to the traditional education, because the systems have been in place for a long time, and it's really difficult to implement any change. We can still give both the students and both your staff or you as an education provider the tools to change the experience, because the experience will then, of course, lead to different results, right? So we are able today with the technology match the expectations of the students. We are able to give them access 24/7 to the answers that they need, give them contextual and personalized support, and also to proactively remind them and help them to actually meet the deadlines. We are able to implement voice agents to remind them to show up in classes and just to help them navigate their whole experience. And then again, what will this do for you is that your team will be free to handle complex queries, because everything that is repetitive can already be handled and routed to the AI voice agent. Then there will be less like edge cases and like urgent escalations, because the students will have the support that they need and they will be able to address their tasks and deadlines and meet their deadlines on time. And of course, where this is all leading is like higher application number, lower the applicant churn, and then also higher attendance, of course, both in the classes, or if we want to take a look at the outbound example, you will be able to reach more prospective students because the voice agent is able to contact just a much bigger volume of people than your human team would be able to. Okay, I think that's everything for the summary, and we will now go for the Q&A. We only have one question at the moment. Which TTS is more suitable, and which one do you recommend for AI agent, DeepGram or 11 Labs? Currently used, DeepGram here works well, but is not able to properly repeat numbers, dates, times, even when set correctly.
So largely speaking, I would recommend using 11 Labs for most use cases. When it comes to repeating numbers, dates, times, this comes down to a voice agent prompt. So I always like, when it comes to time, for example, having it reference a specific time standard. Or with numbers, a really common hiccup a lot of first-time testers will run into is it will read a big string of numbers really fast, which for something like a phone number is not really user-friendly. With a case like that, I would just let it know in the prompt, this is a phone number, break out the re-pronunciation in spaces of 3 to 4 numbers at a time, so it sounds more human.
Thank you, Sunil, for that. Then there is a question, I might have missed this, but which languages do we offer? So at the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sunil, we are offering 60 plus languages and also different accents. I can send actually a link together with the recording so that you can see exactly which languages, but basically we're covering all of the major languages. If there's any language specific, feel free to send another question and we will be able to tell you right away if we cover that language or not.
I could take the question about the higher education. So yes, a lot of the core, if you think about everything that we discussed with regards to use cases, we really mainly focus on the student experience, right? And that's applicable across different levels. I'm not saying a high school would want to do like a course reminder agent, but they feasibly could, maybe if it's like a private institution and they want to be a little bit more cutting edge. With the clients that I work with, they are typically more on the online side of things, but more and more traditional use cases are showing up. And because the setup and the actual functionality is pretty much just tied to what the student might need or might need to be reminded of or showed intent about, it's very easy to replicate the same use cases across the different levels of education. So I hope that kind of brings to light what you can do and what's possible with the voice agents with regards to higher education, of course.
Yep. And to speak to that, a lot of our education clients do appreciate a more high-touch environment where the fact is a lot of students aren't the most organized people on the planet. So there'll be a lot of routine calls that typically counselors or people from that accounting office would handle. So one of our clients in Florida, a major university, is using voice agents to do things like account balance reminders, or to your point, Diego, course sign-up reminders, things like that to just benefit the student experience and help these people stay organized. On my end, nothing much. With regards to that reference question, I can check with that institution, see if they're okay with providing a reference. We'll get back to you later on that one.
There is one more question. What's the onboarding process like, and how long does it take? How long does it take to implement the AI voice agents? I would give this one to
I guess
Neil or to Diego.
so Neil and I can both handle this. So Neil is more on the technical side of things, but as you can tell, a huge part of actually implementing and launching a voice agent has to do with understanding the proper scope. So the proper requirements for the setup, the prompt, the managing the quirks of how the actual model, whether you're using like an OpenAI model, you're using a Claude, whatever, how it interacts and reacts to different parts of your prompt. So typically what we notice is our typical implementation period is about 3 months. When we kind of align on a timeline for when we ideally want to be able to launch the voice agent, when we ideally want, or what the minimum expectations are for that voice agent, just as a first iteration, right? These are, let's say, setups that tend to change a lot over time as we get direct feedback from the actual students, right? So whether it's the prospective students, the current students, they'll provide feedback. We can notice the call rates, the successful calls, etc. But typically, it's about 3 months is our standard like timeline. It might go beyond that if it's something that requires additional technical setup. It requires like a third party automation tool. But we're always trying to iterate and improve them. So you can get to a minimum viable, let's say, voice agent that handles very easy questions, and anything that it considers too hard just transfers it directly to one of your departments, your admissions department or something like that, relatively quickly. But if you want it to be integrated with another CRM, you want it to share data, you want to have multiple different transfers that happen based on the context of the call, that does take a little bit more time. But again, I think it's just a matter of focusing first on what is like the minimum thing you're trying to implement, getting some successes with that, and then expanding on that use case as the weeks pass by.
Great, thank you for covering that. All right, I do think that we have covered all of the questions, and seeing that we are also running a little bit over time, I would finish here for today. Thank you for your time, and we hope we brought some value with this webinar.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.